Okay, so I saw this pasta on a list of like top 30 pastas you need to try, and it had raisins and anchovies and saffron, and I was like, this is so weird, I have to try it. Alright, day 11 of Pasta Month and part 2 of 3 of this video series. And I've made a Japanese pasta. Well, it is a Japanese take on Western pasta called napolitan pasta. So the origins, the lore behind this pasta dish they vary a little bit. So I'm not really going to go into how it was created. Japanese cuisine has a subsection called yoshoku, which like literally means Western food, and it's basically like Japanese people's take on Western food. You'll find dishes like Napolitan pasta or like hambagu. I'm trying to think of other things and can't at the moment. But yeah, there's the Japanese take on beef stew, the Japanese take on gratin, mac and cheese basically. And it's really interesting seeing their take on Western cuisine. And this Napolitan pasta is one of those such things. So I did some research. I looked up a lot of recipes in Japanese on Japanese websites for this, because I haven't eaten this since I lived in Japan. And it's been like 25 years and I've never made it. So I wanted to try to be as authentic as possible, but in my very brief research I discovered there's a lot of different ways of making this. It's one of those dishes where like every home cook kind of has their own spin on it. So I tried to stay faithful to the components that are essential, which are basically the sauce, which is made of ketchup and tomato paste, primarily, and the filling, which is cocktail wieners, you know, sausage basically, but usually with Japanese people, if they say sausage, they mean something kind of more like a cocktail wiener sort of sausage, not like a ground raw sausage. Bacon and green pepper, which, note on Japanese green peppers, we can't get them here in the US. I've never seen them available, not even in Asian grocery stores. They're very thin fleshed and very, very bitter. So green bell pepper I do not think is a good substitute, so I used poblano because I feel like that's a pretty good green cooking pepper. And then onion and butter, I'd say, are also musts in Napolitan pasta. But the rest you can kind of vary it up a little bit. Anyway, now I'm going to tell you how I made this particular one as it gets cold in my hands. So I sauteed off some onions in some olive oil, and then I added mushroom because that was one of the optional additions. And then I forget what order I added these in, so if it clashes with the footage, oh well. I added the green pepper and the garlic and the bacon and the sausage. Now ordinarily I would cook the bacon off independently by itself, but Japanese people don't crisp up their bacon usually, they leave it floppy, so I added my bacon in a little later. And while all of that was coming together, I boiled the spaghetti. And then usually you're supposed to mix the sauce components separately and then dump them in, but I browned off my tomato paste first, and then I added the ketchup and water. And milk is also in a few recipes that I found, so I added a little canned milk for convenience. And then I also added salt, pepper, and a little MSG. I tasted it for sweetness because some recipes do call for sugar, and I felt it could benefit from sugar, so I added a little sugar. And then I added the spaghetti along with some butter. And then I garnished with a little bit of Parmesan cheese because I saw some recipes did that, and I wish I could have just eaten it right off and not had to talk about it for like 3 minutes before. Anyway, I'm gonna finally eat this. Let's try to get one cocktail wiener in my little bite, and mushroom. Itadakimasu. Natsukashi. Yeah, I can't say I actually had this a lot when I lived in Japan. I probably only had it once or twice, so it's not nostalgic, not bringing back memories to eat this. It's tasty. Like, it's a very popular dish in Japan with children, but you know, adults like it too, in the same way that adults in the US like mac and cheese, even though that's like a popular kids dish. You know, this is actually very balanced. You have the umami from the MSG, which was not in most of the recipes that I saw, but like Japanese home cooks do not shy away from using Ajinomoto, so I went ahead and added some. But I mean, you would have that umami from the sausages and the bacon anyway. I was just amplifying it, and the tomato paste. The earthiness from the mushrooms and the bitterness of the pepper and the richness of the butter at the end is really essential. But it's not a very heavy dish, it's not creamy, and I love the zinginess that the ketchup provides. Sacrilegious though it may seem to add ketchup to a pasta dish. It has such a lovely glossiness too, the texture of the sauce. I think it's just hitting all the right spots for me right now, so I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. 12, we have mushroom bolognese. So there is a little story that goes with this pasta. Actually, it's kind of a big story. I have been writing a series of novels. I started them the year 2009. And I've dusted them off and I'm working on them again, and I'm going to start publishing them starting next year. So if you want to be kept in the loop on that, I know it's completely off topic from this channel, follow me on Bluesky. I am Prettytranslator.bsky.social over there, and you can also follow my other Patreon for free and get updates there as well. Basically, it's a young adult urban fantasy story, and my bad pitch for the story is a good group of aliens and their human allies play hide and seek against a bad group of aliens and their human allies in a college theater department. That's actually kind of accurate. Anyway, the protagonist of the series, she is vegetarian, and in one of the chapters she makes mushroom bolognese. She's having her ex over to rehearse a scene for their acting class, and then she gets really embarrassed after she goes through all the trouble to make this lunch for them both to eat, because she realizes, oh no, I overdid it, I put way too much effort into it. But anyway, I wrote in detail like how she made the mushroom bolognese, and I thought, well, I should actually test out the recipe and see if it works. So that is this recipe. I basically consulted a few existing meat bolognese recipes, as well as mushroom and vegetarian bolognese recipes. I consulted a few and tweaked it and kind of cobbled together my own idea of a recipe. So what you do is you saute. It starts like a normal bolognese. You saute some onions with some salt and some olive oil, extra olive oil since there's no meat in this. And then you add a carrot and celery mince, basic mirepoix, add garlic, saute that for a bit, and then you add a bunch of mushrooms. I added 20 carini mushrooms that I pulsed together in a food processor until they were like a ground minced meat, basically. And then you cook that down for a few minutes with some salt and pepper, and then add tomato paste and tomatoes and white wine and a little canned milk and a little soy sauce and a bay leaf and Parmesan cheese rind, and you cook that down for about an hour or so with the lid on. You don't have to cook this as long as you do a meat bolognese, because there's no meat. It doesn't have to get soft. I think I described it correctly. Anyway, I have the recipe up on my cooking Patreon and on my novels Patreon, so follow me on either of those places. And you can get what I have so far as a recipe. I will probably be tweaking this as I move forward, and I invite my followers to make this recipe and tell me what you think and tell me how you might think it could be improved. This is really a work in progress, and on that note, let's taste it. So I already tasted the sauce for seasoning while I was making it. Forgot. I added a little sugar when I tasted it because it was a little too sour, a little too tangy. Wow, that is legitimately really good. I might have different opinions after I finish the whole plate. Things like, it's a little overly salty for my personal taste. I think I just oversalted the pasta water. Yeah, it is delightfully mushroomy. It's very umami forward. I was going to put MSG in this, but I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't, because there's so much naturally occurring MSG in here, from the mushrooms to the tomatoes and the tomato paste and the wine and the Parmesan cheese. It's just like everything in it screams umami. I don't know if I like this better than meat bolognese. God, but this is really solid. This is really good. Yeah, it's earthy and fatty and very tangy and salty, very umami forward, like I said. That touch of sugar is very helpful. And I love mushrooms, and I really love the mushroom flavor coming through in here. This is very solid. I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10. Not to toot my own horn, but I think it's awesome. Ooh, maybe could do with a drizzle of fresh olive oil at the end. Okay, so I saw this pasta on a list of like top 30 pastas you need to try, and it had raisins and anchovies and saffron, and I was like, this is so weird, I have to try it. Anyway, yeah, this is a really interesting, unique pasta. It might not be unique for people from the region from where it's from. Apparently the name of this pasta means like pasta that you make when the weather is bad. I don't know, to me bad weather is sunny weather, and it's sunny today, so it counts. Anyway, you start by sauteing anchovy, a little garlic and onion in a skillet, then you add broccoli florets, and you have to cook these and smash them down kind of into a sauce while you're cooking them, along with pasta water. Meanwhile, you're soaking some raisins in water and some saffron threads in water, and I have some breadcrumbs reserved on the side that I made earlier by just sauteing breadcrumbs in olive oil with a little salt. You add red pepper flakes, black pepper, and cinnamon, which was really, I tried to be very, like, not add very much, but it was hard because I'm making a quarter recipe. I hope I didn't add too much cinnamon. And you add pine nuts, and then you put it on the plate with the breadcrumbs, and ooh, I'm supposed to do a drizzle of olive oil. I'm gonna do that right now. I'm getting the salt too. I wanna give this pasta a fighting chance. I didn't taste it yet because I wanted my genuine first reaction on camera, so it might not be salty enough. Anyway, let's try this interesting pasta. Okay, the red pepper hit finally. All I really got so far is the broccoli and the pasta. Crunch of the breadcrumbs is nice. I'm still just getting red pepper, broccoli, and pasta. Okay, subtle hit of pine nut there, subtle hit of raisin there. It could just be user error. I could have just not made this very well. I've never had it before, I've never heard of it before. It doesn't really feel cohesive to me. When I saw the recipe and saw how different all the ingredients were, I didn't really feel like they would come together, and I don't feel like they're coming together. Okay, I'm getting a little undertone of anchovy there, which is actually nice. Yeah, I'm sorry, I want to like this, but like, I don't dislike it, to be clear. I just feel like it's really not coming together and it's lacking. Saffron, I've cooked with it before and I swear it doesn't have a flavor. Like, either I don't cook it correctly or I get bad saffron, but I can't really taste it. I can ever so slightly taste the cinnamon and it's not overpowering, so that's good. Yeah, I don't know, unless I just did a bad job cooking this, or it was a bad recipe that I happened to be following. I am not at all impressed with this. It's interesting. And again, it's not bad. I'll add a little salt. Maybe that's why it's not really tasting of anything. Maybe it was just under-seasoned. Let me get a bite with more broccoli sauce stuff. It's a little better, but it mostly just tastes saltier now. Yeah, I'm sorry. I gave you an honest try and you are not. I'm not impressed. 4 out of 10. Okay, it is day 14 and this is that viral baked feta tomato pasta. I have seen at least 3 food content creators I follow make this pasta. First I saw Emmy make it, then Future Canoe made it, and Chef John made it, I think a couple times, and this is his more recent, like, updated version of the viral TikTok recipe. So I have a link below if you want to check it out for yourself. It's pretty simple. You take feta and cherry tomatoes, olive oil, and some herbs and spices, put them in a roasting dish, you roast them in a 450-degree oven for about a half hour while you make some pasta, and then you stir the pasta and the baked feta tomato glop together with pasta water until it becomes a nice creamy sauce. It sounded like something I would like very much, and I'm excited to try it. Oh, and I mixed fresh basil in as well as per the recipe, and the basil and the tomatoes both came from my garden. Haha. Anyway, let's try this. It's very hot. I love roasted cherry tomatoes, and I like feta, and I love how the tomatoes and the feta have just sort of dissolved together into this lovely creamy sauce. It's very salty. I'm glad I did not add a lot of salt to this. Future Canoe, I believe, said that this reminded him of like a feta tomatoey pasta salad except hot. And I can kind of see that. It's maybe a little brighter than I'd like, and Chef John's version called for balsamic vinegar, which I don't know if that's necessary. Like, maybe he was counting more on the sweetness from the balsamic vinegar to balance it out, because this tastes extremely acidic to me, to a point where I'm kind of like wanting something to balance that out a little bit. Maybe a little meat, maybe pine nuts, I don't know, something. Yeah, it's very tasty, but I just have a feeling by the time I get to the end of this bowl, it's gonna feel a little too tangy even for me. And for that, I will give it a 7 out of 10. I like how easy it is, though. I will give it that. Buttered noodles. Boil some noodles, drain them, stir in some butter, salt, and a little black pepper if you're feeling frisky. 10 out of 10.
Cool.
All right, day 16, starting the second half of the month with one of my favorite pastas of all time. Nicole from Mythical Kitchen on one of their episodes made this pasta called Triple S pasta. I don't remember what the 3 S's stand for.
The triple S is it's sexy,
it's sultry, and it's spicy.
But anyway, it looked amazing, and so I tried it out, and it was amazing, and I've made it many times since. You saute in some butter and olive oil, anchovy fillets, shallot, garlic, Calabrian chili, and then tomato paste, tomato puree, and cherry tomatoes. Then you add the rigatoni along with pasta water and pecorino romano. And I had some Beecher's Flag Sheep cheese, which is an aged sheep's milk cheese, very similar to pecorino, so I used that. Beecher's cheese is amazing, by the way. If you live near Seattle or New York, you should totally check it out. And you top with burrata and fresh basil and olive oil and black pepper. Now, usually I don't use burrata because it's really hard to find in a normal grocery store. I had to get this at the bougie grocery store. But fresh mozzarella works too in a pinch. Anyway, I'm going to eat this because it's been taunting me. This is so indulgent and luxurious, but also the most intensely tomatoey pasta, which is a lot of why I really, really like it. I think really the Calabrian chilies and the anchovy really, really help bring out the tomato flavor, as does using like 3 different kinds of tomato, the tomato paste, the tomato puree, and the fresh cherry tomatoes from my garden. And then the creaminess of the cheese, both cheeses, the pecorino and the burrata, and the olive oil. It just helps round everything out. And the Calabrian chilies bring a nice, spicy, fruity punch to the whole thing. I love this pasta so much. 10 out of 10. All right, queso mac and cheese. This is literally just queso on shell macaroni, and that is my cat. Would you like some? Probably. Anyway, you make queso by sauteing a bunch of stuff in butter, and then you add canned milk, and then you add cheese and cornstarch, and you stir it all together. And I forgot what I did because it was a whirlwind as I made this. Anyway, watch Chef John's video on Food Wishes if you want to know how to make queso. I'm gonna eat it now. Yay. It's pretty much as I thought it would be. It's like stovetop mac and cheese, but like with a slight queso-y edge. I kind of messed up the cooking of this a little bit, honestly. I forgot to put the tomatoes in when I was supposed to, and I was going to add serrano chilies and forgot. User error. Otherwise, pretty solid stovetop mac and cheese. I will give it a 7. Assassin spaghetti. So ever since I saw Chef John from Food Wishes make this almost a couple of years ago, I've been dying to try it. Now I'm finally trying it. This is a really unique pasta that it's not less about the recipe and more about the technique. So you first make a tomato broth out of olive oil, garlic, tomato puree, and water, and a little salt. And then you get in a large non-stick skillet, this is important that it's non-stick, olive oil, a bunch of red pepper flakes, raw spaghetti, and then you ladle in, kind of like you're making risotto, you ladle in the tomato broth, and the spaghetti will absorb it, and then it will start to caramelize on the bottom. You actually want to get a little bit of charring on this. I didn't get as much as I should have probably, but you just keep adding tomato broth and evaporating it, and then until it eventually cooks through about 25 minutes later. And then you garnish with some olive oil and parsley and more red pepper flakes. So I've been tasting it as I cooked it just to see if the pasta was ready. So I kind of already know what this tastes like, but the final bite on camera with a little parsley, it's sticking together. So you know how I said the Triple S pasta was intensely tomatoey? I think this might even have it beat. The charring of the tomato puree makes it like, you know, charred tomato paste. It enhances the sweetness and the savoriness of the tomatoes, and the red pepper flakes are, I love spicy food, so this is great. It's the morning, I'm having this for breakfast, and it's still great. Like I said, I don't think I cooked this like perfectly the way I was supposed to. I think I needed to get a little more charring on it, but this is really tasty. I think it's a little bit intense to have as a main course. I think it makes a better side dish, but it's great. I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. Okay, this is another one of those pastas that I saw during my research phase for this month. It was on a list of like unique Italian pastas that you should try, and it's predominantly walnut, which really fascinated me because I love walnuts. I don't understand the hate that they get. Basically, You make a sort of pesto, first by parboiling some walnuts. I think it's to get rid of that bitter flavor that some people object to. And then you combine that with garlic, fresh oregano, and fresh marjoram. I just use fresh oregano because to me they're indistinguishable and I didn't want to shell out like $3 for fresh marjoram when I have free oregano in the garden. Thyme, and then you blend those together, and then you add to that some olive oil and cream and pecorino romano and black pepper. And then you add cooked fettuccine, a little pasta water is needed, and you top with minced chives, which again, confession, these are scallions. I didn't want to shell out like $3 for fresh chives when I only need a tiny bit, and scallions are pretty much the same. Anyway, barring those two ever so slight subtle differences, this is going to be my first time trying this pasta, and I'm excited because, like I said, I love walnuts. I think if I made this in a mortar and pestle like you're technically supposed to, the walnuts would have been broken down a little bit more. The recipe said they're supposed to be still kind of coarse, so I don't actually know how broken down they're supposed to be. I think I personally would prefer them slightly more broken down. I'm actually not getting that much walnut flavor. I'm wondering if parboiling them took away some of their flavor, which again, I think other people object to that, but I like it because I like walnuts. I like it. It reminds me a little bit of fettuccine alfredo, just a similar. It has a lot of the same ingredients, just, you know, cream and Parmesan cheese, or pecorino in this case. It's smooth and creamy and soft. You know what? I'm going to add a little more salt. That is the disadvantage to wanting an authentic first taste reaction on camera. I can't taste as I go for salt, which you're supposed to do when you cook. So I think this might have just been a tiny bit under-seasoned because I was not really getting very much flavor from it. Okay, let's try again. Salt your food, guys. It's pretty good stuff. Man, I'm still not tasting the walnut as much as I would like to, though. I'm getting the herbs, I'm getting the garlic, I'm getting the creaminess from the cream and the cheese. I really wish it tasted more walnutty, though. Again, I like it. It's creamy, it's smooth, it's like fettuccine alfredo, which I like, okay? But I really wish it tasted more like walnuts. Still good. I'm going to give it, also it was very easy to make, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. But yeah, I wish I'd tasted the walnuts. Okay, pasta alla vodka. This is one of my most highly anticipated pastas of this month. I've known that this existed for many, many years, and I have yet to try it or make it, so I made it. In some butter, you saute onions, garlic, and red pepper flakes with some salt until they soften. Then you add tomato paste and cook that out for a while. Then you add canned tomatoes and cook that out for a while. Then you finish with some cream, puree it, and then when you're ready to eat it, you reheat the amount that you want to eat. Add a little splash of vodka at the end, and then you stir in some cooked tubular pasta, like penne in this case, along with pasta water. And then at the very end, you stir in some hard cheese. I use pecorino romano, and pasta water as needed, and then you serve it with extra cheese at the end. I tried some of this sauce before I added the vodka, and it was delicious. So if you can't have alcohol, it's perfectly fine. Just make it without the vodka. Anyway, let's try it. So I joked, I think in the last pasta video, when I made butter chicken on pasta, I joked that it was kind of just like Indian butter chicken, and that wasn't far off. It's a tomato cream sauce, and oh my goodness, it is so good. It is very tomatoey there's a lot of tomato paste in this sauce, proportionally speaking, and the creaminess of the cream and butter and cheese really balance out the like really savory and sweet and tangy notes of the tomato. And since you're mostly using paste instead of tomato and tomato juices, it's not so tangy. It's a much softer, creamier sauce. It does not taste at all boozy, if that concerns you. I don't really like the flavor of booze myself either, but alcohol is a really good flavor enhancer, similar to salt or MSG. Okay, this isn't even questionable. It is 10 out of 10. This is a really good pasta. I'm going to be making it again. Okay, I am officially 2/3 through my pasta month, and I am indeed starting to get sick of pasta. I have really been craving lately just meat and vegetables. I think because most of the pastas I've been eating are ovo-lacto-vegetarian or pescatarian. Some of them are even vegan. And like, I usually eat a veggie side. I have like a mess of roasted broccoli off camera that I'm going to eat with this. But like, most of these pasta dishes, and they've been the bulk of my meals, are mostly just like a bunch of carbs in the pasta and then some fat for the sauce. And like there's really not much like vegetable or meat with them. So yeah, I have been feeling like my diet has been a bit lacking in more substance. I know there are like more veggie forward pasta dishes. I just didn't really select very many of those for this month. But I'm going to have some interesting pastas in the final 10 days of this month. Some of them are regular favorites that we make all the time, and others are more new classic pasta dishes that I have yet to try. So tune in the next video for the thrilling conclusion of my pasta month.